She answered the phone at 11:37 in the morning. 13 minutes later, she was gone. Her lunch was still warm on the counter. Her keys were on the desk. Her purse was exactly where she always left it. The cash register was wide open and empty. Outside in the parking lot, her car sat in the wrong spot. Not where she normally parked it, somewhere else, as if someone had moved it. Patrice Endres had vanished from her own hair salon in the middle of a Tuesday morning, in broad daylight, in a town where everyone knew her name. No struggle, no broken glass, no screaming, no witnesses inside. Just 13 minutes that have never been explained, and a case that has haunted investigators, her family, and true crime audiences for over 20 years. This is the story of Patrice Endres, and the 13 minutes that swallowed her whole. Cumming, Georgia is a small town about 40 miles north of Atlanta. In 2004, it was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked, waved to strangers on the street, and knew 3 generations of their neighbors' families. It was quiet, safe, the kind of town where nothing like this was supposed to happen. Patrice Endres was 38 years old in April 2004. She had curly dark hair, a wide smile, and a personality that people described the same way every single time. Warm, generous, the kind of person who remembered everything about everyone. She remembered the names of your kids. She remembered what you told her 3 months ago about your sister's health problems. She remembered birthdays. Her clients didn't just come to get their hair done. They came to sit in her chair and talk to her. Some of them stayed for hours after their appointment was finished, just to keep the conversation going. She had worked hard to build that life. She had earned her cosmetology license, saved her money carefully, built up a loyal client base, and eventually opened her own salon. Tambers Trim and Tan on Highway 369 in Cumming. It was her dream made real, something she had planned and worked toward for years. She ran it herself, mostly alone, handling appointments, cutting hair, managing the books, keeping the place going on her own effort and her own reputation. She had a teenage son named Delves Wade Black. Everyone called him Pistol. He was 15 in April 2004, a 10th grader, and by every account completely devoted to his mother. They had a morning routine. Every day before school, Patrice would wake Pistol up by going downstairs and turning on the treadmill. The sound of it running was his alarm clock. That was their signal. That was how they started every day together. On the morning of April 15th, 2004, she turned on the treadmill like always. The two of them had a brief argument that morning. Pistol was in a hurry to get to school early so he could talk to his girlfriend before class started. Patrice wanted him to slow down. It was the kind of small, ordinary argument that happens between every mother and teenage son on every normal morning. The kind of argument nobody remembers afterwards because there is no reason to remember it. Pistol left for school. Patrice drove to her salon and started her day. Her appointment book that morning was straightforward. Her first client arrived at 8:50. Her second client arrived at 11:10 and left at 11:27. After that, Patrice was alone in the salon, waiting for her afternoon appointments. At 11:35, a client called to reschedule an appointment. Patrice answered and took the call. The client noticed something slightly off. Patrice seemed curt on the phone, short in a way that was not like her at all. Not rude, just distracted, as if something had her attention elsewhere. The call lasted about 2 minutes. At 11:37, that call ended. At 11:50, another client called the salon. The phone rang and rang. Nobody answered. 13 minutes. That is the entire window investigators have been working inside for over 20 years. 13 minutes between the last confirmed sound of Patrice's voice and the moment the salon went silent. At around noon, 2 regular clients arrived for their scheduled afternoon appointments. They walked through the door and immediately knew something was wrong. The salon was empty and completely still. Patrice's purse was on the desk. Her keys were next to it. Her lunch was sitting beside the microwave, untouched, still warm. The cash register was open, and the money was gone. Outside, her car was in the parking lot but parked in the wrong spot, several feet from where she always left it. They called 911. Within hours, investigators from the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation were on the scene. They processed everything. They pulled phone records, interviewed every client who had been in the salon that day, canvassed the surrounding businesses, and began building the 13-minute timeline that would define this entire investigation. 2 witnesses came forward who had driven past the salon during that critical window. Both of them, independently, reported seeing a blue car parked directly in front of the salon entrance. Not in a regular parking space, but right at the door, blocking it. The first witness thought it was a 1992 Chevrolet Lumina with a Georgia wildlife tag on the license plate. She said she saw 2 women standing near the car with their hands on each other. The second witness thought it was a Ford Taurus or Chevrolet Malibu from somewhere between 1999 and 2002. He said he saw a woman and a man with shoulder-length hair standing close together near the car. Both witnesses drove past without stopping. Neither thought anything of it at the time. That blue car has never been identified. Its driver has never been found. As the search for Patrice began, 3 suspects emerged. Each one brought something disturbing to the investigation. None of them were ever charged. The first was her husband, Rob Endres. Rob was 20 years older than Patrice. They had met when she was working at a salon booth years earlier, and he was one of her clients. They married in 1997. But according to friends and family members who knew Patrice well, the marriage had become deeply unhappy. She had confided in multiple people that she wanted a divorce. Friends described Rob as possessive and controlling, someone who always needed to know where Patrice was, what she was doing, who she was talking to. Her son Pistol described a home life full of conflict. The relationship between Rob and Pistol was hostile from the beginning and only got worse over time. The day after Patrice disappeared, while she was still officially just a missing person, while the search was still active, while her family was still hoping she might be alive somewhere, Rob Endres changed the locks on their house. He was brought in for questioning. He told investigators he had a time-stamped receipt from a gas station in Woodstock that morning, roughly 40 minutes from the salon. The receipt appeared to confirm his alibi. He was not officially ruled out as a suspect, but he was not charged, and a Forsyth County investigator later stated on camera that Rob had been cleared. But Rob's behavior in the months and years after Patrice's remains were discovered made it almost impossible for people who loved her to accept that clearance. When Patrice's skeletal remains were found, Rob had her bones laid out and reassembled on a table so he could look at them. He kept her ashes in his bedroom and slept with them, describing them in a television interview as his teddy bear. He refused to share any portion of her remains with Pistol, her own son, creating a bitter and permanent estrangement between the two of them. He threw Pistol out of the house shortly after Patrice disappeared, leaving a grieving 15-year-old without his mother and without his home at the same time. In 2020, Rob Endres was interviewed for the Netflix reboot of Unsolved Mysteries in an episode titled 13 Minutes. He sat in front of the camera and spoke about Patrice with a calm that many viewers found deeply unsettling. At the end of the interview, speaking about her ashes, he looked directly into the camera and said, "She's all mine, and that's how it should be." Rob Endres died on October 8th, 2023. He never changed his story. He never said anything more. After his death, Patrice's ashes were finally returned to her surviving family. The second suspect was a convicted serial killer named Jeremy Bryan Jones. Jones was on death row in Alabama, sentenced for the rape and murder of a woman named Lisa Marie Nichols. He had raped her, killed her, and set her home on fire. After his conviction, Jones began voluntarily confessing to additional murders across multiple states. Patrice Endres was on his list. Jones claimed he had driven to the salon on April 15th and told Patrice he needed help getting his car jump-started. When she came outside to help him, he pulled out a knife and forced her into his vehicle. He then claimed he drove her to Sweetwater Creek and disposed of her body there. There was one immediate problem with this confession. Patrice's remains were found on land, behind a church in Dawson County, 11 miles from the salon. Not in Sweetwater Creek. Not in any body of water. His account of what he did with her body was directly contradicted by where she was actually found. His confession fell apart on that detail, but investigators did not dismiss Jones entirely. He had what they called guilty knowledge, specific details about the case and about Patrice that had never been released to the public, details that only someone connected to the crime or connected to someone who committed it could reasonably know. What those specific details were has never been publicly disclosed. Jones remains on death row in Alabama. He has not been formally charged in connection with Patrice's death. The third suspect was Gary Michael Hilton, known as the National Forest serial killer. Hilton was a drifter who was eventually convicted of murdering 4 hikers across Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina and sentenced to 4 life terms. He was known to investigators for a specific pattern. He targeted hair salons for robberies. He would walk in, identify a woman working alone, and rob the register. The connection to Patrice went beyond his general pattern. The wooded area in Dawson County where Patrice's skeletal remains were eventually found was the same area Hilton had used to dispose of another victim's body. The geography overlapped. The method overlapped. But again, no confirmed direct evidence linking Hilton to Patrice specifically. No charges. No confession related to her case. On December 6, 2005, exactly 600 days after Patrice walked into her salon for the last time, a hunter discovered skeletal remains in the woods behind a church off Kelly Bridge Road in Dawson County, Georgia. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation identified them as Patrice Endres. She had been dead for a significant period of time. The cause of death could not be determined from the remains alone. Her wedding ring, 2 bands soldered together with a marquee diamond center stone, was missing and has never been recovered. Nobody was charged. Nobody was arrested. For Pistol Black, the years since his mother's death have carried 2 separate and permanent griefs. The first is losing her. The second is never knowing who took her, or why, or what happened inside that salon in those 13 minutes. He was 15 years old when she disappeared. He is an adult man now. He has carried the weight of that Tuesday morning his entire life. The argument about school, the rushing out the door, the ordinary irritations of an ordinary morning that turned out to be the last conversation he ever had with her. He was denied even the basic dignity of her ashes for years. The woman who woke him up every morning by running on the treadmill, who remembered everything about everyone, who built her dream from nothing. Her remains sat in a bedroom that had thrown him out, described as someone else's teddy bear, while he had no access to anything of hers at all. After Rob Endres died in October 2023, that finally changed. Patrice's ashes were returned to her family. 19 years after she vanished. What happened inside Tamber's Trim N Tan between 11:37 and 11:50 on April 15, 2004 has never been established with certainty. A blue car appeared outside the front door and then disappeared. 2 people were seen near it. The cash register was emptied. Patrice's lunch sat untouched on the counter getting cold. Her keys sat on the desk going nowhere. 3 suspects. 20 years of investigation. 0 charges. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation has never officially closed this case. Investigators have stated publicly that they believe answers still exist, that someone, somewhere, knows what happened in those 13 minutes and has chosen, for 20 years, to say nothing. Somewhere out there is the person who drove a blue car to a small hair salon on a Tuesday morning in April 2004 and left 13 minutes later with Patrice Endres. They have never been identified. They have never been charged. And as of today, they have never spoken. This case remains unsolved. If you want real disappearances, unexplained mysteries, and true crime investigations based on actual events, subscribe to the Crime Vault and join us for the next case.